Hey everyone, it's Ellen Lewis from Crazy for You. Good evening, and I hope you are doing well. So, tonight, what I wanted to do was to look at the most popular patterns on Ravelry over the last 5 years. This was a very interesting exercise, I will tell you, because there is no way to sort Ravelry data by the last 5 years. I can only look at what is currently popular. So I was a little disappointed that I couldn't do exactly what I had hoped to do, but it was a super interesting process of kind of going through this and looking at all of the different ways that Ravelry categorizes popularity or sort of ranks all of its patterns. So stay with me to the end because I will show you something that I think is super interesting and that you might find interesting as well. So thanks for joining me. Hey, Barbara. Hi, Amy and Sandy and Amelia. Super nice to see you. So, when we think about the most popular patterns on Ravelry, these tend to be the ones that come up and flood your search results, regardless of what you're looking for. And you kind of have to click that button to sort them in a different way. You can sort them by most popular, new to Ravelry, hot right now. Um, Most projects, most favorites, most queued, most likes. And I thought that was like so confusing. So I did some digging and I think it's interesting what I found out. So, most popular. So, Ravelry's most popular is a fairly complicated algorithm that relies heavily on the patterns that have been most added to people's queue. So, obviously, you're all on Ravelry. If you're not, I will explain that a queue on Ravelry is an indication that this is a project that you actually plan to make and that you're not just going to make it sometime, you're actually putting it into the list of things that you plan to make. It's sort of like a real commitment. It's not like, hey, let's get together for lunch sometime. It's more like, let's get together for lunch next week. Is Tuesday or Wednesday better for you, right? So that's a firm commitment. So that's one of the primary ways that Ravelry ranks popular patterns. Another thing is they do actually take into account the number of times something is liked. So when you like a pattern, it's again, it's like saying, hey, let's get together for lunch sometime, or hey, it's nice to see you. We should do this more often, but it's not very specific. And for me, I think it kind of skews the data because I'll like things and put them in bundles for all kinds of different reasons, right? So it might be that I just want to show you a particular set of things, so it's not that I actually like them, they've just sort of come up as one in a type. So, but Ravelry does look at that. And they also look at the number of patterns. But here's what I found most interesting is that they also take into account the amount of buzz in the forums about a particular pattern. So if it's mentioned, if it's shared, if there's a lot of interest around it. So that's how they define who the popular girls are on Ravelry. So anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. So, yeah. And hey, Mary, it's nice to see you from cold and blustery Michigan. We're actually having unseasonably cold weather here. I think it didn't get above 45 today, and it wasn't above 41 yesterday. So that's really kind of cold for even though it's December. So anyway, super interesting. So I wanted to share with you um, first the list that comes up when you look at most popular patterns on Ravelry. And this is probably not going to be a surprise to anybody. So here they are in top-down order: ranunculus, flax worsted, cumulus blouse, love note, no frills sweater, step-by-step sweater, lento, field sweater, Felix pullover, and weekender. And I would be so interested if you would tell me in the chat if you've knit any of those, and if so, which ones and what you thought about it. So go ahead and put that in the chat. And if you're watching this later, put it in the comments so that I can see, to see what interests you. So let's look at each at each of these projects kind of individually and sort of talk about them and see why it is we think they are so popular. So the first one is ranunculus. And this is like crazy. This was probably the first viral pattern um, that I think we've ever seen. It just went to some tens of thousands of numbers of projects. Um, got 11 sizes. It has an extraordinary amount of ease. And one of the things that I think is maybe most interesting about it is that you can use any weight yarn. They're all knit on a US 10. So you can see the one in the center is knit on lace weight. The one on the left is knit with wool and I think a strand of mohair. The one on the right is knit with just wool, worsted weight. And it looks good on a variety of figures. So I think that, that's probably part of it. Of course, it's a top down in the round. It has an interesting stitch pattern across the yoke. Um, and here's the thing that I thought was kind of interesting too. I talked about how the amount of buzz there is on Ravelry about it. I think that plays also to the number of comments, just like in social media. And there are a solid 19 pages of comments on this. Every single comment that somebody made about this or question that they had, the designer dutifully answered every single one. She was absolutely so incredibly gracious. And, I looked at all of the pages and I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive. It kind of got to a place though on sort of the 18th page where somebody wrote sort of a nasty comment about why are you using all of these complicated stitches? Are you doing it just to show off? And I don't think that you should do that. And I'm really struggling right now. And anyway, she didn't respond to that. But I kind of don't get that from this designer. I think this design is absolutely legitimately interesting and probably deserves a certain amount of recognition. Does it deserve to be the top pattern on Ravelry? I don't know. Tell me what you think. I would be happy to hear. So Sandy says that she has not knit those, but they're in her favorites. Amy has knit Love Note and Flax Worsted. Interesting. And Pepper has knit Field and Ranunculus. Yeah. So I think that's sort of telling. Okay. So the next one is Flax Worsted. And flax worsted is not a new pattern. This was put out in 2013, has a fabulous size range. So it goes from 0 to 6 months all the way up to a 6 XL. So I think part of the reason it has so many patterns, so many projects is that a lot of people have knit it for babies and kids because there aren't all that many really super easy patterns for babies out there. And this one's really cute. Yeah, super easy to do, top down in the round, worsted weight yarn, very basic with a fun garter stitch sleeve accent. It's easy to modify, add stripes, whatever you want. And it's free with the Tin Can Worsted app. So I think that's sort of interesting. Not that price has anything to do with whether or not somebody knits a project they want to knit, but it's just sort of interesting to note. Okay. The next one is Cumulus Blouse. Let's see. Amy says Rich is wearing his 2017 flax right now. Very cool. So yeah, that is kind of another thing about the flax is that it can be knit for it's unisex, and you could easily knit it for a man, a woman, a baby, a child, a toddler. So yeah, perfect. I love that your husband is wearing his right now, Amy. That's great. Okay, Cumulus Blouse. This was put out in 2018. Again, top down in the round. I think this might have been one of the earlier designs by Petite Knit, who, as you know, is wildly popular. It's in a worsted gauge. And it was one of the first, I think, that really explored holding two yarns together to get a different gauge. Um, I'm not saying that there weren't other patterns that have done that, but I think she sort of was one of the first to use a fine yarn and a mohair to really get um, that texture. The pattern is size inclusive and it's a nice basic. You can see here that she's obviously knit three of them for herself. To me, it just feels like a wardrobe item, super cute. I love a V neck. So there's Cumulus. And then Love Note, this one sort of skyrocketed, kind of came out of nowhere. Again, by Tin Can Knits, which is the same designer that did Flax Worsted. This is a top down in the round, but this is an knit at an Aran gauge with a DK weight yarn equivalent. So a fingering weight yarn and a silk mohair. This kind of really brought that whole concept of silk mohair with everything to the fore. Again, like I said, top down in the round. It's got a high-low hemline. You can crop it. You can make it long. You can make the sleeves whatever you want. And the whole sizing thing, it's extremely size inclusive. And they recommend between 4 and 12 inches of positive ease, which is really kind of not that helpful. I think if you say 4 inches of positive ease or 12 inches of positive ease, I guess it's really just sort of saying do it any way you like. I would like to point out that in the pictures here, most of these women are wearing it with a little bit of negative ease over their bust. So, I mean, they're beautiful and everybody looks great in it, but they're not wearing it with 4 to 12 inches of positive ease. So I'd be interested to know if any of you have knit this. I know that Mandy has knit it. She knit it in a beautiful yellow color and she absolutely loves it. It looks wonderful on her. Okay, so that is Love Note. This next one is, again, petite knits. It's called No Frills Sweater. This was earlier than Cumulus. This was a 2016, just super easy, top down in the round, very simple styling. Again, with her signature two yarns held together. You can see she's knit two of them here. Again, it's a basic. It's a wardrobe basic. So Mary says that she knit Love Note. Oh, good. Tell me if you liked it, if you were happy with the way it came out. So No Frills Sweater. Petite knit really does sort of those wardrobe basics, which I think people are sort of looking for now. Okay, this is a newer pattern on the scene. This was put out in 2022. Top down raglan, Aran weight, super basic. It's a free pattern, which I think definitely is an appeal for people because they feel like if they don't like it, then they haven't lost anything. But again, it's not going to stop somebody. Having to pay for a pattern is not going to stop somebody from knitting something that they love. Am I right? So this one is cute, and you can see that it's got some interesting stitch work. She's added some stripes in some of them. Again, it's just a basic. And this is Lento. Oh, why do I have her there? Oh my goodness, I forgot to take that out. Sorry, these first two are Lento. And again, this is just a basic. It's a top-down raglan in 9 sizes, and it is worked at a gauge of 15 stitches over 4 inches with a fingering plus lace, which I see as knitting up as a DK weight. So pretty simple, Again, a wardrobe basic. And then this one is the field sweater, which I think is so cute. Many of you knit with me the Magnolia Bloom by this same designer. Again, this is a yoke sweater. And instead of the big gauge that we did on Magnolia Bloom, this has a worsted gauge, 20 stitches over 4 inches with a DK weight yarn combination. And I think it was this particular sweater, this test knit on the right, that really made people fall in love with it. She did a beautiful job making this yoke stand out with a pink mohair carry along. So you can see that she's carried the mohair along with the yarn here and then not there. So beautiful, very pretty, top down in the round. You can do long or short sleeves. Again, it's recommended with 5 inches of ease, but if you look at the designer in the center here actually wearing that sweater, she does not have 5 inches of positive ease over her bust. So I think there's a lot of flexibility in that, which is good. Mary knit the field sweater and was very happy. All right, cool. Yeah, I've been tempted by this one, but I haven't really pulled the trigger on it. She started Mentor and it's in timeout. That must be another design by this same designer, huh? Yeah. Okay, and this is Felix Pullover by Amy Christoffers. Oh, okay, Lento, yes, good deal. This is the Felix Pullover, very basic, top-down raglan, and all she's done here is at the raglan line, added a little bit of lace, which is such a pretty way to kind of jazz up a raglan. This is knit in a worsted weight yarn, knit at 14 stitches over 4 inches. So again, drapier than you might expect, but very pretty. And she also has this in a cardigan version, which didn't make the top 10 cut, but I still think it's really cute. And then the last one is, how could we forget, the beautiful Weekender. So this came up as number 10 on the most popular patterns. Andrea Mowry, I don't think there's anybody on the planet except for me who hasn't knit this one. Tell me if you've knit it. Super easy. It was introduced in 2017. And I think this might have been Andrea Mowry's kind of breakout pattern, the one that sort of launched her into superstardom. It's bottom up in the round. You can see that it's a reverse stockinette, but you knit it from the inside out. So you're knitting and not purling. And then there's no shaping at the neckline. It's a boat neck. It reminds me of a sweater I did early in my knitting career that had this same ribbing at the top and a boat neck. And then it's a drop shoulder, very cute. Most of these are basics, which is why I haven't been interested in knitting them. Yes, I think that's a really good point, Amelia. Pepper, I have not. Yeah, I haven't knitted either. So, and nor has Sandy. Okay, so, all right. So that is the kind of a quick run through of the top 10 most popular. So what I thought I would do would be to look at the most popular and see how many projects they have. Because as I said at the beginning, the popularity contest on Ravelry is not tied directly to the number of projects. It has more to do with the number of queues, queue additions, and the amount of buzz, which I thought was really interesting. Because you've got some patterns here that came up with a higher level than some of the others that had more projects. So I started digging into that because, of course, I did. And I swapped it around and I sorted the patterns by the most number of projects, which I thought was interesting. So you look at flax has 30,000 and the field sweater has 2,500. But then I started thinking, okay, flax sweater has been around a long time. So the number of projects isn't necessarily the most important data associated with it because obviously between 2013 and 2024, it's had 11 years to gather up 30,000 projects, whereas this one has, only 2 years and it's already got, 30, almost 3,400 projects. So again, I decided to sort my spreadsheet and I sorted it by what I call velocity. So I looked at the number of patterns. I looked at the year that it was published. So I subtracted the year it was published from this year, and I divided the total number of projects by the number of years that the pattern has been around. And I call that velocity. So that's maybe not the exact right term. Maybe Amelia can tell me. But the idea is how fast it's gaining popularity. Maybe it's not velocity, maybe it's more acceleration. But how quickly those patterns became popular, or how many years it took them to get that number. So ranunculus is still at the top. Between 2017 and now, it got an average of 3,760 projects of it in that time to make it 26,000 projects, which is an enormous number. Then is Love Note. So between 2019 and now, it got 13,000. So this whole process of looking at how fast the patterns are gaining popularity, I think is a little more indicative of actual popularity, right? Does that make sense? So if you look at it this way, the flax pattern by Tin Can Knits doesn't even make the cut, right? Oh my gosh, I just love you, Amelia, for coming on board and telling me about this. All right, so I used the term velocity because velocity is acceleration. It's not acceleration, it's how fast you're going, right? Acceleration would be change in velocity. So Amelia says velocity, is this like velocity like in agile software development? Well, you lost me on that, but velocity, she says velocity makes a lot of sense in how you are using it. Agile software development processes use the term in a similar way. I'm so glad that I didn't mess that up. So yay. Thank you, Amelia. Amelia is my resident engineering expert. So she's an engineer and I just love it. So again, this I think is a much more, a much better indication. So yeah, flax falls down a little bit under Love Note, but it still ranks, doesn't it? I was actually surprised to see when I went into each of these, I checked to see if some of these older patterns, if people were still making them, which I thought would be an interesting aspect to consider. And yes, people are still making flax worsted, starting it in 2024 and finishing it in 2024. So to me, that sort of speaks to it being a classic. And that is this sorted all the way down, So I hope that makes sense to you. The other thing I kind of wanted to talk about was the fact that when we look at Ravelry and what Ravelry says and what Ravelry has deemed popular or hot right now or whatever, we have to take that in context. So if you think about the fact that Ravelry is largely populated by United States knitters, in fact, I have a graph to show you here. This is Ravelry visitors by country. So these are the people that go to the website, and almost half, 47.9, so almost 48%, which is almost half, almost half of the people who use Ravelry are from the United States. So anything that kind of happens there is going to be skewed toward the users. The next country that has the closest usage is Canada, right? So I think that's just kind of interesting. So Amelia says, looking at whether people are still starting older patterns now is similar to the ideal of the long tail in economics. Yes. Okay. I have to be careful here because Amy says this video already needs a math warning. So I don't mean to trigger anybody with math phobia. But I do think that this is interesting. The fact that the United States is completely dominating Ravelry usage. And I looked at um, another chart that I thought was interesting, and this is Ravelry visitors by age. So again, if you think about the fact that Ravelry is determining popularity based on buzz and by the number of completed projects of a pattern that are posted in Ravelry, you have to think about who are the people that are posting to Ravelry, who are the people that are using Ravelry, and who are the people that are posting to Ravelry. So if we look at this chart, can I put this up there? Yes. Okay, if we look at this chart, you can see that just the visitors, 23% are 25 to 24. But if you do the math, about half are 44 and under, and about half are 45 and older. Now, that's just visitors. Okay, so lots and lots of people of all ages go to Ravelry. But I would be willing to venture that it is more the younger people who are actually posting all of their projects, who are actually, chatting in the forums and sharing this stuff back and forth. So I think it's important to remember that this is kind of a self-selecting set of statistics. These are Americans of a certain age who are tech savvy and really enjoy engaging with the Ravelry platform, and they use it as a way of tracking and sharing their projects in the way that they might use social media. And I don't have the statistics on this because there's no way to sort of see it, but I would bet that people 55 and older are doing less sharing of their projects. I'd be interested in knowing in the chat whether or not you share all of your projects on Ravelry. When Ravelry was small, I used to share everything out there. Maybe it was just a different time, but since that time, I guess it's been maybe, I don't know, 6 or 8 years. I don't have time to photograph and upload and do all of that stuff with my Ravelry. I just don't. So I guess I'm part of the people that are not knitting all of the popular patterns, and I'm not engaging with Ravelry enough to really sort of show that. So I did want to kind of say that taking these popularity contests for the projects it's important that you take them with a grain of salt. So conclusions. What do we know now? Okay, what kind of general assumptions, what generalizations can we make about what American knitters between a certain age that engage with Ravelry, what generalizations can we make? One, no way around it. American knitters love seamless. Okay, they love top down, bottom up, in the round, seamless. They want to avoid seams at all costs, whether they're top down raglan, top down yoke, top down drop shoulder, in the round, avoiding the seams. Okay. Another thing that I'm seeing is a tendency toward what I call pushing the gauge. Knitters are looking for fabrics that are drapier, right? They're not looking for a worsted weight yarn knit at a worsted gauge. They're looking for DK or lace weight, or even worsted weight knit at a bulky gauge, or at least pushing it a little bit so that the fabric is softer, right? And I think that feeds part of the appeal of mohair and mohair carry-alongs and alpaca carry-alongs that I think has really come to the fore in recent years. So let's see. You don't share projects either. Yep. Takes too long to share. Yep. Same. Okay. Um, so the other thing I'm seeing, and this goes to Amelia's point, is that I think knitters are looking to now knit basics. They are knitting wardrobe items. And I don't know how true this is, but I think there's a concern that, if you're knitting something, you don't want it to go out of style, or I don't know why this is, but it is definitely a fact that knitters are knitting more basic things. It could be that we have more beginning knitters that are now brand new sweater knitters, and they're looking for things that are easy. It could be that, like me, they like boring knits because they like to wear boring knits and they don't care if it's miles and miles of stockinette. Um, I'm not really sure why. I would love to hear in the chat or in the comments what your thoughts are about why we see so many very, very similar basic garments in these popular top sweaters. So many of them to me look exactly the same. Um, and I think the last thing is that I think this shows how very much knitters value social proof. I mean, we all do. That's a pretty standard marketing tactic, social proof. Everybody's knitting this. It must be awesome, so you should knit it too. Many knitters are not part of that. They're going to avoid the thing that everybody's knitting. But I think a lot of knitters, maybe if they're anxious about a pattern, it might not be right, it might not work. It's comforting to know that 26,000 other people are knitting this project. So it's probably okay. And you'll find somebody out there who is facing the same struggle with it that you are. So anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. And I hope that this has been a fun look at some of those super popular patterns on Ravelry. Typically I tend to focus on patterns that are less popular or older and things that I think are really great. But I thought this would be actually kind of fun. So let me know in the chat if you have enjoyed this. Give the video a thumbs up. I would love that. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Would love to have you on board. Amelia says, no good way to compare, but a lot of knitters also use Instagram to share what they are doing. Yes, absolutely. I think they do use Instagram. I know a number of my knitters in Club Crazy for You use Ravelry as a place to sort of make notes about their pattern, because you can do that, changes that they've made and things like that, which I think is important because I wrote about it in the newsletter on Tuesday. So a lot of our digital community is using Ravelry as a place to make notes. Let's see. Pepper, more classic look is very appealing. Minimalist. Yeah, I think that there is definitely part of that. So anyway, good. Lena says, I like to knit basics so that I can wear my garments for years. Yes, absolutely. Right. Okay, so good. I'm glad that you enjoyed it, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, keep knitting and create something beautiful. Good night.